Hello. Today in my storytelling playlist, I'm going to talk about the magic of detours. So the story takes place in Vietnam. I lived there for about a year, but I've been there many times. I have several friends that live there, so I kind of go back when I can. But I was there visiting, and a different friend of mine from Korea decided to come and visit. I had this plan prior to go on this motorbike road trip with this old friend, and we decided that we were going to go to this other city in Vietnam. And so I told my friend from Korea that I was going to do this because I already planned it, and he kind of came at the last minute. So he decided he was going to go too. And I asked him if he knew how to ride a motorbike, and he said yes, that he'd done it once or twice before. And so we got him a motorbike. And, you know, riding in Vietnam is its own peculiar thing, let's say. It's quite dangerous and it's quite chaotic. And even when I lived there, I had gotten in an accident once. So it's not the easiest thing. So when we got him the bike, I took him on a kind of pre-ride to make sure that he could do it. And we went to the Hai Van Pass, which is this kind of like small kind of mountain hill that's quite scenic and very beautiful. And we did that, and there was no problem. He did fine. So I thought that it would be okay to take him on this road trip. So at the last minute, a third friend of mine decided he was going to come, and that was kind of just the magic of the trip, because we didn't know he would come, and he just kind of came at the last second. So there were four of us kind of setting out on this trip. We start off, and everything's fine, and we're going, and my old friend is a bit confident in Vietnam because he's lived there a long time, so you know, he tends to ride a bit fast, on the faster side. I'm more cautious, especially after my accident, so, you know, I wouldn't say I'm as reckless as I used to be. So we kind of got in these groups, my old friend and the spontaneous friend that came. Them two were a little bit faster and more confident because they lived there, so they were kind of in the front, and me and my other friend from Korea were near the back. So we're riding on this highway, and this big truck I mean, that's one thing about Vietnam, is there's all these big trucks on the highway, so it's quite terrifying. You're riding on this little motorbike on the side, and these huge trucks come very quick, very fast past you and blow up dust, and you know, it's just kind of dangerous. And even when I lived there, I heard all these stories about people getting in accidents and dying. So my friend from Korea was in front of me, and I was the one in the rear. And this truck kind of pulled out near him, and he decided to go around the truck. To do that, he kind of had to go off the road a little bit onto this gravel area. But one thing that you know when you ride is that like gravel is quite treacherous, and I don't think my friend was experienced enough to know that. So as he was going by, the gravel shifted, and he slid, and he crashed basically. And I could see it up ahead, and there's like this, you know, plumes of dust going up in the air, and I was like, oh no. And so I get there, and he's okay, let's say. I mean, he's not okay, but he's not dead, which is lucky. But he had a big gash on his hand, and a rock went into his knee. And you know, when I saw the hand, I was like, okay, that's not too big of a deal. We can manage that. But when I saw the knee, I was like, oh Jesus, because there's like a huge hole in his knee, and I'm not really good with blood, so like I got kind of like queasy to begin with, and he was in shock kind of. And so this old Vietnamese man came out and kind of helped us, and I was like trying to call my friend because they were far ahead. And eventually they answered, and you know, we tried to figure out where we were and like if we could get to a hospital. And eventually we found out that there weren't really that many hospitals near where we were because we were kind of in the country. And so we finally found a clinic When I say a clinic, I mean basically like a room, very primitive. And we get there, and there's this nurse there that obviously lives there. It's like her house, basically. And she's quite old, maybe like 55, 60, I guess. And she's got a few children around there, and that she's sort of taking care of. And we take him in there, and she starts stitching it up and stuff, and we quickly realize that our trip has definitely changed course because he's probably not going to be able to ride well once he gets fixed. So on one hand, it was really scary for him because this clinic looked just, almost like a triage kind of place. There wasn't much in there, and the lady looked experienced. She probably had to deal with all kinds of things, like delivering babies, all kinds of things, because it's out in the country. She did a good job, and she cleaned it up, and everything got fixed, but, my friend was kind of still in shock. So we kind of wanted to figure out where we could go closest to there and just kind of chill out for the night and decide what to do in the morning, because it was getting close to dark at that point, and you don't really want to ride on the highways in the dark in Vietnam. So we found this tiny town. I wouldn't even call it a town. I'd call it like 2 streets that was not too far from there. And we went there and, got a hotel, luckily. My friend was kind of out of it. We went and got dinner, but we could all kind of tell that he was probably done for the night. So after dinner, he went back to the hotel to rest, and the 3 of us were kind of like, well, what do we do now? Like, we're in this town for the night. We have no idea, what is here or whatever. So we start kind of walking around, and we go to this restaurant. And I should say that my friend that lived there the longest, his Vietnamese is excellent, like almost native. It's very good. So that helped. If he had not spoken that good of Vietnamese, I think the experience would have been a lot different. But we got to this restaurant, and like the people, as we were walking through the town, were just like, who the hell are these guys? Because I don't think they had experienced many foreigners. Most of the foreigners go to the big cities in Vietnam, so they were quite surprised to see us. And then once my friends started speaking Vietnamese, they were like very surprised. So we got to this restaurant, and we start ordering some stuff, and pretty soon we're like local celebrities, I guess. Like, all these people are coming over to talk to us and ask us where we're from. And the spontaneous friend, the one that came along at the last minute, he speaks some Vietnamese as well, and so it was pretty fun. And then we finished eating there, and we decided to kind of walk around and see if there's somewhere else to go. We had like a beer or 2 or whatever, and we find this other like late night restaurant, which was predominantly younger people. Not like the first restaurant we went to were like kind of older natives, but this looked like younger, kind of hip. I wouldn't say hip, but hip for the town. So we went in there and we got some food, and it turned into this interesting thing because all the people were kind of staring at us and like laughing, and like one by one, a person would take a chance to kind of come up and talk to us. They're kind of nervous because they were a little bit younger. And some of the women were kind of like eyeing us because there was 3 men, foreign men, and we were like smiling and stuff. But there's this edge of like, we're in this town where like if something, if there was some kind of altercation, we would be in big trouble. So we were very cautious about being too friendly with anybody. We were just kind of talking to everybody, but a little bit standoffish. But eventually people started buying us like shots or drinks or whatever, and it got looser and looser, and a few tables left, but by the end we're like there, like the people had sort of moved together 2 or 3 tables, and there were maybe like 10 or 12 of us left, and there was one girl there that spoke quite good English, so she was kind of translating for them, and my friend was translating for us, and so it became this really kind of intense revelry, let's say, and it was quite memorable. But we ended up getting more food and staying there quite late. And at the end, like, the people that owned the restaurant were, I wouldn't say they were cheating us, but like sometimes in Vietnam when you go to a place, they will try to charge you foreigner prices, which is often very different from the Vietnamese price. And my friend that lived there a long time was kind of offended by it, so he was making a bit of a big deal about it, and because he doesn't like being, he's lived there so long that he sees himself as kind of one of them. He's married, he has a child there and stuff, so he was a little bit, giving them, not shit, but like saying, "Oh, come on, why are you doing this, blah, blah, blah." And then eventually they relented and they gave us a lesser price. But I didn't really care one way or the other because even the foreigner price was very cheap. But, to him it was like the principle. But we ended up going to this like pool hall after, and it was a very interesting night and a very magical night. And I guess my point is that like when the accident happened, because we had this idea that we'd go to this other city and that we have this really good night there, and when the accident happened we thought, well, damn, like this is just going to be a wash now, the whole trip. But the night turned out to be quite magical, and I would say it was a highlight of my time I was there about a month that time, and it was one of the highlights. But driving back was kind of a pain because the next day, we woke up and obviously the shock had worn off, so he was more coherent, my friend that got in the accident, but he was also in more pain, and we had to figure out a way to get him back, and we weren't really sure if we could shuttle the motorbike back, so we just kind of decided that we'd ride back slow. And so he had to kind of ride back, but he couldn't bend his leg, so it caused a lot of issues, and we had to stop a lot, and it was kind of a struggle. But eventually we got back to Da Nang, the city that we were coming out of. And yeah, it was an interesting trip because it was just one of those things you don't plan, and fate kind of took it whatever way it wanted to take us. And I think, looking back, I think we all really enjoyed the trip. It wasn't what we intended, but the friend that was there spontaneously, he was leaving Vietnam soon to go back to the UK, so it was kind of like the last thing. Anyway, it was very good. I think that's about all I got for today. I will see you next time.